Hi, this is Frode. Thank you for coming, and today we will explore 3 key ideas from Primary Greatness by Stephen Covey. Primary Greatness, subtitle, The 12 Levers of Success. Stephen Covey seems to me to have been a truly extraordinary person who taught principle-centered living to build both families and organizations. He was also a best-selling author of the classic self-help book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which sold in over 20 million copies. And I'm really excited about this book because it has helped me see the true importance of living your life by timeless principles. I like to think of the book as your manual for building your life foundation on sand. And not building your life foundation on sand, but instead building it on bedrock. And there are 3 key ideas we're going to explore for helping you realize your ultimate potential. I want to introduce them with a story from my own life to help you better understand the ideas, and they all go together. So very quickly, the 3 ideas are character, principles, and affirmations. So, to weave them into the story, about 6 years ago I was studying carpentry. I was going to become a carpenter who was out building houses and apartments and all these great buildings, which I found out I didn't want now, but back then, as I think about back to that time, while I was preparing for this video, I realized that I could actually weave these ideas into that time while I was studying carpentry. So what I noticed was that to build a strong house that would stand the test of time, it would handle rough weather, and it would be an enjoyable place to live in, we needed at least 3 components. We needed a strong foundation. We needed to follow certain rules for what materials to use to hold up the house and where to put our nails on the planks so they would hold. And finally, we needed to actually build the house, put in the consistent effort, or else there would never be a house. We couldn't just build it up in 1 or 2 days because we were so excited. We had to put in the time over a long period. And in the same way, I like to think of your character as your life foundation, which needs to be established on bedrock. Your principles in life that you choose to live your life by, which are your attitudes and your behaviors, are like the rules that you need to follow to build a strong house. And then affirmations, which means repeating certain phrases and sentences and affirming them to yourself about yourself repeatedly, is like building your house. So let's dive deeply into each of these ideas, more deeply at least, so you can see how you can start applying them to your life to build a strong life house, which will stand the test of time, help you handle challenges that you face, and it'll help you lead an enjoyable life, just like living in a strong house. So the first key idea is primary versus secondary greatness. First, let's talk about secondary greatness. It's so you can think about secondary greatness as it's kind of like establishing your life on foundation on sand instead of bedrock, which means that it will ultimately crumble apart. And when you live your life by secondary greatness, you place a lot of value on things outside of you, which are fleeting, like the title that you have in your current job, the money that you make, the honor that you get from other people and respect, and your popularity. And the problem with this is that, as I mentioned, all these things are fleeting. They are really not a part of you. And therefore, you will start to adapt to the new title that you get, won't really get much more enjoyment and happiness out of it after some weeks, months, or years. Same with money. If you earn a bit more money or you get a lot of money, you might be excited about it in the beginning, but when you buy that new set of clothing, or you buy that new technical gadget or a new car, you will ultimately become adapted to all those things. They won't give you any more joy. So secondary greatness ultimately leads to fleeting sense of fulfillment, because you are depending on things outside of you for your happiness instead of inside. And the opposite is, of course, primary greatness, which means your character, who you actually are, your integrity, your sincere desires and motives in life, your motivations. And when you live a life by primary greatness, you are centering yourself on yourself, your character, as mentioned. And this means that you are living your life by a certain set of principles, and you care more about who you are instead of who you seem to be, who you are on the inside instead of the outside. This leads to much more fulfilling relationships, since you can be authentic. You don't have to go chasing after popularity, which is outside of you, the opinions other people have of you. You don't have to go put on all these masks and roles just to have people like you. It will also give you a stronger ability to pursue purpose in life, what you are here to do, instead of only going after jobs or careers for the money that they will bring in. And really quickly, purpose that I've seen in multiple books and seen in my own life really depends upon three components. You are doing something that you're interested in. You're doing something that embodies one of your strengths, or several of your strengths, what you're good at. And finally, you find a way to meet the world's needs through those activities. So you love to do it, you can be truly great at it, and you fulfill a true need, which gives you the money that you need to actually pursue your purpose. But anyway, that's primary greatness. Who you are, as Emerson said, be and not seem. We want to truly be our great character and not seem to be our great character. But the question ultimately comes up, how do you live your life by primary greatness, based on character, a strong, solid foundation set on bedrock instead of sand? And that leads us to our second big idea, which is principle-centered living. But first, of course, you have to make the choice. Do you want to live a life of primary greatness or secondary greatness? Chase things outside of you, secondary, or center your life on who you are, of becoming a better person, primary. If primary, then you can keep on going with me for the next idea. If you chose secondary, then you can shut off the video and go do something else. So the second idea is principle-centered living, the way we live our life by primary greatness. And the real problem is that when in the world, you might have noticed, there is a lot of change. You change jobs, some jobs become obsolete, some jobs become necessary, new jobs arise, some jobs go away. You get a new job and you lose an old one. Or there might be new relationships that come in, new relationships that come out. Your health might change. And this might create a real chaos in your life, because you don't know what to do in those situations. You don't have kind of a compass for what to do, especially with the sense of purpose. But anyway, the way you move past this chaos of change in the new world, especially with our technological interruptions and how everything is changing nowadays, is to align your life by a set of certain principles that you yourself choose to live by. Because principles are really attitudes and behaviors that you choose to integrate into your life. And the cool thing is that principles are like laws of the universe. Whether you think that, believe in gravity or not, a rock will still fall down if you throw it up into the air. And whether or not you believe that the earth will rotate and the sun will arise tomorrow, whether or not you believe it, it will still rise. And it's the same with principles. Whether or not you integrate your life to them and follow them, you will still experience the effects. And some examples of principles are you reap what you sow, meaning you get the results from the amount of effort you put into something. Or it can be, what's another common law or principle? The law of karma. For every single choice you make and have ever made in your life, in your health, family, relationships, and your work, those choices led to where you ultimately are today. So those principles are at work, whether you are aware of them or not. And the question becomes how we align our lives to these principles that help us have a North Star in life, that help us have a compass in a world of massive change. And that's to very simply start a list of the principles that you yourself choose to live your life by, that you want to live by. And to make it a bit more specific, you need to create topics in that list. This list can be in a program like Evernote or a Word document that you choose, or it can be on a simple sheet of paper. But optimally, a tech program online, since you're probably going to add a lot of principles to these over the course of your life, because this is something that you would keep for the rest of your life and review repeatedly, which we'll talk more about soon. So you create this list and you have specific topics. For example, if you want to master relationships, how do you have the question, how do I create deep, lasting, and fulfilling relationships? So I really get a lot of connection in them. Then you start adding some principles. Well, you might learn from some great source or from your own experience that appreciating the other person specifically by giving them a compliment, that strengthens our relationship. It makes the other person happy and it makes me happy. Some small acts of kindness, like opening the door for other people, helping them out, asking if there's something they need. Well, that might be a principle that I want to live my life by. And if you wanted to master a new skill, you learn that focusing on one single skill, component of my skill at a time, that seems to really help me reduce the overwhelm of trying to do everything all at once, and instead really increase my proficiency in the one component of that skill and eventually build up. So practice one component at a time might become a principle of mastery. And for your purpose, which might be a new topic in your list of principles that you live your life by, might be I am doing what I'm interested in, that I can become truly great at, which also fulfills the world's needs. So there you have three components of purpose: interest, strengths, and needs. And these things I'll talk more about in the next big idea, how you can start really integrating these principles into your life. But the first thing to do now is to really start your list. And just to give you a sense of how to gather in these principles that you want to live by, which are really like the rules of building a house. So got to kind of follow the rules to build a strong house and a strong life house. So the way I gather principles is to ask myself as I'm reading a new book, for example, Primary Greatness, that what are the key principles here for living a life of primary greatness? Or I need some other specific question. What are the key principles for mastering violin or mastering a new skill? What are the key principles for creating deep and lasting relationships? What are the key principles for creating a sense of purpose in my life and fulfilling that purpose? Because when you have these clear targets, it's like you're putting on a heat searching machine in your head. So when you ultimately read the principles that give you the answers for how you can master whatever you want, then they will kind of pop out and you will realize it. So then you can add it to your list. But if you're not looking for principles, you're not going to find them. I noticed this by reading a couple hundred books over the last few years. I was looking for ideas that was cool, but I wasn't really looking for the principles I consistently wanted to align my life by. So, to wrap this one up, create a list of principles, sort them by topic, and whenever you find a quote that resonates with you, or read something that resonates with you, or hear something, or you experience something that seems to be deeply true for you, an attitude that you can have about your life or behavior, then you write it down in your list under the topic. And how, then, do we go from having these rules in our house, life house, to actually building the house itself and putting in the consistent effort? That leads us to the third big idea, which is affirmations. Affirmations are really these repeated phrases or sentences that you affirm about yourself as you do it over time, about 21 days to 30 days, once or twice or three times a day. Then it will go into your subconscious mind, so it will become part of your automatic behaviors or attitudes. You won't even have to remind yourself of them in order to live them. So the problem with learning about new principles that you get really fired up about is that you might be really excited about them in the beginning and see that, wow, these principles really work. And a couple of days later, you're not really following them anymore because you have forgotten to integrate them into your life very deliberately. And that ultimately, what happens then is that we go into chaos again, as I mentioned, with not living by principles. The world is ever changing, it will keep on changing, everything around it changes, but certain principles and laws of the universe won't. And then it would be smart to align our lives by them again. So the way affirmations help you is that they help create these, as we mentioned, they create these this automaticity in your attitudes and behavior, so you won't have to think about them anymore. You just need to put in the process, put in the effort of getting the principle to burn into your subconscious mind. So other benefits of doing this is that it increases your motivation. When you have specific targets of how you want to behave or think about life, then it becomes much easier to hit those targets than if you're not having any targets at all and you're just shooting around and doing whatever feels right in the moment. And so that gives you a sense of motivation. And ultimately, it gives you the opportunity to choose how you will lead your life, since you're not dependent upon the circumstances, but you're dependent on the compass you have created for yourself. So how do we create these affirmations? Well, I like to think of it in one specific way for our purposes here with the principles. First, you need to choose the most important goal that you have this year, for example, or the most important problem that you need to overcome. That's the first step. Then you need to learn what's a principle, an unchanging. It's a timeless, universal principle that's kind of self-evident, that always works. So you can meet that goal or overcome that problem. And then you need to follow a sense 5 characteristics for creating really powerful affirmations that will burn into your subconscious mind and make it a part of who you are, make it part of your character, which is our goal here. Establishing a life on bedrock and not sand. So first, what is the one goal that is most important to you, that would have the most positive impact on your life this year? Or the number one problem that if you overcome it, that would have the most positive impact on your life. So these problems can be addictions like overeating, it can be doing drugs, too much sex, masturbation, or whatever else addictive patterns you might have. And the goals might be financial goals, it might be work goals, relationship goals, might be spiritual goals and meditation, or whatever. So when you have your goal or problem in mind, then ask yourself, what's the one principle of behavior or attitude I need to have in order to most directly move toward that goal? So if I want to become enlightened, achieve full awakening of realizing the true nature of myself or reality, which is kind of a bad example because that's a deep topic that we need to cover in other videos. But if I want to get to the goal of meditating for 30 minutes a day at the end of the year, and I have never meditated before, I need to start with 1 minute perhaps each day. I need to consistently increase by a couple of minutes each month so I can train myself to do that amount. But then I need a clear behavior or attitude to do that. So it can be, principles might be, I am meditating for at least 1 minute each day. And you can change this, or I'm meditating every day. Then You have your goal or problem, you have your principle, and finally you need your 5 characteristics of an affirmation. So I will give you one example first, then show how the 5 characteristics are added in that example before I ask you to create your first affirmation that will help you embody a principle to make it part of your character. So, one principle might be, one goal might be to, it's a pretty vague goal, but it might be to make better choices in life, because I might have a sense that I'm not making very good choices in the moment. I'm making choices that don't feel really good, and I want to make choices that feel a bit better. So you can have that's the law of karma at work. If something really feels wrong when you decide to do it, then there's a big chance that it's not the right choice. I'm not the one to judge, you are. So the principle might be, so the goal is to consistently align myself with my intuition, to do what really feels in the heart to be right. Not just feels right in the moment because I want more pleasure, but what really feels right in itself. Then the principle might be choices, every choice I make determine my destiny. Then I need to follow the 5 characteristics. So I'll create the whole one first and then go through the characteristics. So I am joyfully making choices, I'm joyfully making good choices that determine my destiny. So that's the affirmation. The 5 characteristics here are 1, it needs to be personal. The affirmation needs to be personal, meaning you start with the words I am, because it's you who's going to embody this attitude or behavior. It needs to be an emotional word to motivate you. So I am joyfully. Then it needs to be positive, something that you want, not something that you don't want. So I am joyfully making good choices, which is positive. Making good choices needs to be present tense, which usually includes the words which ends with the words ing. Making good choices, doing, singing, walking, talking. So I am joyfully making good choices. It needs to have at least a visual word, making good choices that determine my destiny. So I can kind of see this timeline of my life, that this choice will either lead upwards or it will lead downwards, or it will lead me nowhere, just the same place as I am. So I am joyfully making good choices that determine my destiny. So when that becomes a part of your subconscious mind and who you are, then you might start noticing yourself making more of the good choices. How does this choice really feel? Does it feel right or does it feel wrong? What if I try to make the right choice, even though it's the most uncomfortable one? It requires me to put in some more effort. What will happen then? So, for you right now, what's the one goal or the problem you can overcome? What's the one principle that you want to live by? And then you need to create an affirmation. Personal, emotional word, positive, present tense, and visual word. Alright, I babbled a bit here to kind of try to help you get your mind around how to create these principles, but I hope it helped you. And you can read the book yourself if you want to get even more clear instructions for how to create these principles. I highly recommend it, but now let's recap the ideas. So you learned about how you can put in the effort to build your house, your life house, by affirming the principles that you want to align your life by. And you've learned to follow the rules for building a strong house by choosing principles-centered living, aligning your life around principles. And finally, you chose to place your life foundation on bedrock, not sand, by living a life of primary greatness instead of secondary greatness. You choose to live your life by character. So, That's the manual for how to build your life foundation on bedrock, not sand. Hope you enjoyed, and if you did, I think you'll love the book. Finally, if what's the I'm curious, what's the one idea that most resonated with you? The one that most fired you up? And please comment the number one action, specific action that you will take to embody it, or an insight that you had while hearing about the ideas. I'd love to follow up with you in the comments, and also please like this video, share it with your friends so you can create some ripple effects of positive impact on the world for other people who can get these ideas. Please, I would appreciate that if you support me on Patreon. I have a link in the description, so you can just start donating a small sum of money each month so I can start creating more videos of a better quality for you. And finally, to subscribe to my channel if you haven't, because if you want to create an extraordinary life that will have a big impact on the world, positive impact, then I believe you really need to commit your life to self-actualization, which basically means realizing your highest potential, whatever that means for you, and what it feels most true to you. That this is a challenging and treacherous journey, but it can also be a really rewarding one if you have a traveling companion who can help you see the pitfalls and of what not to do and signposts of where to go, and also ultimately help you stay on track. Which is what I do in these videos, of sharing key ideas for realizing your ultimate potential. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Stay with me as we take one step together at a time on this heroic journey of self-actualizing and giving our greatest gifts in service to the world.